gentlemen, Mr. Harris Rosen. We thought we would just take a few minutes with Mr. Rosen because that's just a snippet of what this gentleman has done, not only just on the business side, but certainly on the philanthropic side. Everyone here at the, he used to be in catering and banquets before, so he understands completely that he's between you and the reception outside, too. But it's interesting because I've heard nothing but wonderful things about this person. We just met a few minutes ago, and about how humble he is, and I think you see it in the video. And he's very much loved by his employees. Okay, I've never had that success myself, but I think it's interesting because I caught on to this humble piece, you know, and I thought about it as I drove up to the hotel. It's called the Rosen Shingle Creek, and I came in and I checked in, and this nice big painting of him right there in the lobby. And then I went into my room and noticed there's the Rosen magazine with his picture. So he's a pretty humble guy.
Thank you, Scott.
That's right. I did want to ask you this. I said he'd either love this or he'd hate it. How does that make you feel watching that video? You probably watched it many times, but what are you thinking when you're sitting there watching your life, kind of?
Well, it's very difficult to condense a little over 70 years in just about 6 minutes. So as I watched the video, I recall many other aspects of my life that I think were important and are still rather vivid. But it is a little snippet of who I am and where I started. And I do believe that the message, and Tashonda shared this, the message is it doesn't really make much of a difference where you started. It makes all the difference in the world where you end up. And my parents, I think, did a very good job in making sure that my brother and I understood that very clearly. I suspect that the vast majority of the kids I grew up with, now this was a tough neighborhood between the Fulton Fish Market and the Bowery. The vast majority of the kids I grew up with are dead or in prison. And for my brother and I to have not wound up that way, I think is somewhat of a miracle. But we didn't, and we listened to Mom and Dad, not all the time, but we listened to them, and they shared with us how important it was, if we wanted to leave the neighborhood, to get a decent education. I was the first in the family to go to college. My brother was the second. He wound up as a physician, and I left college, went into the Army, and then started in the hotel business.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, I want to hear and talk a little more what you've done at UCF and of course at Tangelo Park. Is it Tangelo?
Tangelo.
Tangelo
yeah,
Park
and that actually is a fruit. Mm-hmm. It's a combination of a tangerine.
I didn't even put the two together.
And an orange, yeah.
What, you know, I read, if you get a chance, in the magazine, the one with his photo all over the front of it, there's a great piece that you wrote that gives sort of the history and the background. If you get a chance, because we won't sort of recount it all here, but I did hear a story. Your father worked at the Waldorf Astoria. He was an engineer. That's correct. And you hung around the hotel a fair bit.
I did, that's right.
And I heard one story about you in an elevator with some people, and I'm just wondering if you could offer that.
This is a great story.
How you get into the hotel business.
This is a great story. Dad, his title was a safety engineer, but Dad never finished high school. He didn't earn very much as a safety engineer. He kept the family going because he was a calligrapher. He had this enormous talent to do beautiful handwriting. And he worked at the Waldorf Astoria. Many very famous banquets, celebrities, and they would ask Dad to handwrite the place cards. And then my job, when he gave me the place card, was to erase the pencil, because he did the name in pencil first, to fold the card and put it in a shoebox in alpha sequence, and then to go down with him or up the Starlight Roof and to put the cards around the table. For that, he paid me a penny a card, which was huge. If we did a banquet for 300 or 400 people, I'd make $3 or $4. So anyway, one day we were putting this banquet together, and I was carrying my shoe boxes, and Dad had some. And we get in the elevator, and the most incredibly beautiful lady was there. Now, I was maybe about 9 or 10 years old, but still able to appreciate a beautiful woman. And I kind of elbowed Dad, and I said, "Dad, who is she?" And he whispered, "That's Marilyn Monroe." I said, "Oh my God, Dad, if you could just introduce me." So Marilyn was with a very tall, distinguished, older gentleman. And Dad introduced me first to Marilyn, said, "Marilyn, I'd like you to meet my son, Harris, Marilyn." And she extended her hand, and I shook it. And then he said, "Ambassador Kennedy, that this is my son, Harris." Well, I didn't make any connection there at all. It was Ambassador Kennedy. So. But as the years went by, I remember Marilyn singing to the ambassador's son, who was president, John F. Kennedy. And I remember hearing stories about Bobby and Marilyn. So I believe that Marilyn got to know the 3 Kennedy men pretty well.
Very well, some would say.
So that was, I said to myself, and I said to Dad, if I could meet someone that beautiful in an elevator in a hotel, then Dad, I think I want to be in the hotel business. So, now I have to confess this, that in the many years, the 60-odd years from that moment to today, I have not had the pleasure of bumping into a Marilyn Monroe kind of person. But I'm still waiting, and it may happen yet.
Well, you came here, I think, in 1969 for this new hotel theme park thing called Disney World, right? And you helped with them with the planning and design. I did. You didn't last long in that job, though, did you? Yeah, Cornell University, U.S. Army. I did my basic training at Fort Bragg. I still go to Fort Bragg on my birthday, and I get to jump with the Golden Knights. Then, job with Hilton. Hilton brought me to Dallas, from Dallas to Acapulco for a private developer, and then from Mexico to California. California read about Disney. I was hired in New York for Disney, drove to California, worked with the architects helping to design Contempt, Poly, Fort Wilderness, and the golf resort. And got to Orlando in 1969, worked like crazy, developing, writing procedures for the hotels, the Central Reservation Office, and believed I had really done an excellent job. The hotels opened October 1971 at a full house, and I hadn't received a pay increase in 2 years, so I was anticipating a conference with my boss, and sure enough, my boss's boss called me in for a little meeting, and I was really excited. I knew that I'd done a good job, and the conversation started off really quite well. It was Bob Allen, and Bob said, "Harris, you've really done a great job for us. The hotels are running full, they're beautiful, and the procedures are working well. The reservation office is clicking." And then a word that I will never forget,
and if I close my eyes, I can hear it. But, and I remember thinking, why is he saying but? The but was, Harris, you've done a great job, but it has become apparent to us, those of us in leadership, that you will never successfully become a Disney executive. And now I must confess this, that every once in a while, even today, the Lower East Side, a rough, tough neighborhood, I'm back there, and I do things and say things that are completely inappropriate. And this was one of those times. I said, Mr. Allen, you say that I'll never become a Disney executive. Is it because my ears are too small? So he said, Harris, that's the kind of bullshit we're talking about. Listen to this. You don't respect the mouse. Well, so I'm fired from Disney, although I did a great job, because I don't respect a rodent. And I pledged to myself that never, ever, ever would I work for somebody else again. So yes, but I know there's a God, because I mean, I was fired from several jobs, not because I wanted to be, but because I was. And had I not been, I wouldn't be here today. And I couldn't control any of those events. So somebody carefully plotted a path for me, and here we are. I mean, it's amazing.
It really is quite a story, and there's much more to it. If we had a little more time, I wish we did right now to talk about the College of Hospitality Management you started. I think I'd rather talk a little more about your philanthropic giving. You do it on a personal level, you do it in a big level, you get personally involved, it's not just the money. But I've also heard you have a program to encourage your employees to do the same.
Yeah, we are, I think, a rather unique company. We're a relatively small company. Some people might suggest not, that we're larger than small. We have about 3,500 associates. And I think they really do very much appreciate our culture and our philosophy. If you work for me for 3 years, your children get a free college education in the state of Florida, a public college in Florida. There are 11 of them. If you work for 5 years, you get a free college education. Our healthcare plan is probably one of the finest in the nation. We have our own medical center, 3 full-time physicians, primary care physicians, a staff of 38, a 13,000 square foot facility. If you work for me and you're in the hospital, the most you pay is $500. 2 visits, $500 each, and then you don't pay anything. One of our associates gave birth to a tiny little preemie a year and a half ago. The baby weighed a little over 2 pounds. The baby stayed in the hospital for 6 months and is now incredibly healthy, little 2-year-old. The bill was $1,360,000. Mom and Dad paid $500, and we paid the balance. When you treat your associates with that kind of respect and dignity and care, they reciprocate. And so many of our initiatives are supported really enthusiastically by our associates. We started going to Haiti about 20 years ago, and still go. In fact, I'll be there April 4th, 5th, and 6th. And many of our associates participate in those initiatives. We built the Rosen College of Hospitality Management. 3 of my 4 kids are there. My 4th will start next year. And many of our associates are happy to participate in various programs there. We adopted a neighborhood called Tangelo Park, and we provide free preschool for every 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old, and a free college education for all of the youngsters who are accepted to college, community college, or vocational school. And we've been doing that program for over 20 years. We've had our medical center for 25 years. So when you are involved in the community, I think those people who work in your organization respect that and feel really good about working for the company. And they really want to participate, and we encourage them to do so. So it is a culture that we established many years ago, and that has served the community well. Let me say this. Those of us who are somewhat entrepreneurial, I believe, and I have nothing to substantiate or support this, I think we possess a gene, an entrepreneurial gene. I don't think you can teach someone to be an entrepreneur. You can teach someone accounting and marketing, but you can't teach someone to take risk. That's something inborn. And so I've been blessed or cursed with this little gene. And for about 20 years, I built this little company from a 256-room hotel to about 6,500 rooms. And felt pretty good about myself. And one day, sitting at my desk about 20 years ago, I said enough is enough. Not necessarily enough building or growing, but enough thinking exclusively about me. I said there's got to be more balance in my life. And I refer to that as responsible capitalism. And there's nothing responsible about capitalism. I mean, the whole point is to squash your competitors and monopolize whatever industry or service you're providing.
Especially those with big ears.
And so I now have been able to create a kind of a balance in my life where we just bought another 25 acres. We'll be building another 500-600 rooms to addition to this property. We're in the pizza business. We have our own IT company. We have our own insurance company. And I guess we're going to continue to grow and expand until I just can't do it anymore. But to counterbalance that, I am giving back more and more and more. And our little foundation, the Rosen Foundation, has been doing a lot of really good stuff all over the state and in Haiti. And we're going to continue to do that.
You know, when us, like anyone else, it's a competitive field. We have choices where we put on events. And there's Hiltons and there's Marriotts and all around here. Other than this being an absolutely stunning property, there's another reason we come here, okay? Because of the culture. We talked in our workshop earlier about the culture of institutions and how you treat students and about, you know, it's reciprocal. Well, that's what happens here at Rosen Shingle Creek. And it's pretty inspiring to sit here and have a chat with you. I want to thank you on behalf of all that, not just for hosting us here, but more importantly for for what you're doing in the leadership, so we can maybe learn from that and transmit that to others. So,
well, I appreciate that.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.